Imagine a man, gavel in hand, standing before a room of property investors. The lot he's about to auction isn't a house, an office, or a block of flats. It's a staircase. 4 stories high, gray inside and out, an orphan building whose purpose was redeveloped out of existence. A literal staircase to nowhere, waiting to be demolished. Most people in the room are treating it as a joke. But in the front row, a man named Squibb is clutching a paddle, ready to bid. For him, this isn't a joke. Because he knows something that the rest of the world has forgotten. He knows that a staircase, even one that leads nowhere, can have profound meaning. He knows it can be the first step towards something much, much bigger. Today, we're not just talking about buying strange property. We're talking about buying back your life. What is the one thing you want most in this world? That you've convinced yourself you can never have. That quiet, persistent idea you push down every morning when your alarm goes off. The one you dismiss as childish, unrealistic, or a luxury you can't afford. We're told to be practical. To get a good job, pay the bills, work hard, and save for a comfortable retirement. We're taught to walk a pre-paved path, to put our heads down and trust the system. But what if that system, the one designed for security and stability, is the very thing imprisoning your potential and slowly killing your soul? This is the fundamental, agonizing problem at the heart of so many of our lives. We live in a state of quiet desperation, trading our deepest desires for the illusion of safety, until one day we wake up and realize we've become a non-playable character in our own life story. The author of today's book, Squibb, knows this feeling intimately. He wasn't born with a silver spoon. At 15, after his father died suddenly in front of him, he found himself homeless, sleeping on friends' sofas, and on one particularly cold night, in the relative shelter of a fire exit staircase. For him, a staircase wasn't an architectural oddity, it was a sanctuary. It was the first step. Decades later, having built and sold a company to PwC for more money than he'll ever need, he found himself with total freedom, and he hated it. He realized that making money had fulfilled him, but having it didn't. He had been so focused on survival, and then success, that he had never asked himself the most important question. What's your dream? His book, aptly titled What's Your Dream? Find Your Passion, Love Your Work, Build a Richer Life, is his answer to that question, not just for himself, but for the millions of us who feel stuck. The grand promise of this book is not about finding a get-rich-quick scheme. It is a guide to deprogramming yourself from the harmful myths that society has fed you, a roadmap to discovering the dream you didn't even know you had, and a practical toolkit for building a life of purpose, meaning, and true wealth. This isn't just another self-help book. It's a manifesto for a different way of living, written by a man who has lived at both extremes of the spectrum and discovered the truth the hard way. He's on a mission to help 10 million people start their own businesses for free. And it all started with that ridiculous, beautiful, 4-story staircase to nowhere. To build the life you want, you first have to demolish the faulty structures you've been living in. Squibb argues that our journey towards a dream must begin by identifying and rejecting 4 pervasive myths that society has handed down to us, ideas so common we often accept them as gospel truth. The first and perhaps most insidious is myth number 1. The harder I work, the luckier I get. We're all taught this from a young age. Work hard at school to get a good job. Work hard at the job to buy a house. Work hard so you can retire. But Simon, looking back on the 15 years he spent building his creative agency, Fluid alongside his wife Helen, realized something profound. He had worked hard. It was, he admits, the only real skill he had compared to Helen's brilliant creative talent. But hard work alone wasn't the reason they succeeded. Had seen countless entrepreneurs work themselves to the point of burnout, their businesses failing despite their Herculean efforts. Hard work, he realized, has as much in common with failure as it does with success. The danger of this myth is that it tells us not to think, not to dream. It encourages us to just put our heads down and get on with the task at hand, often for someone else's benefit. It tells us not to take risks, not to pursue our deepest ambitions. Simon's greatest successes, he admits, came when he wasn't working the hardest. His best ideas for the business came on holiday. He made the most money when he brought someone else in to run the business and took a back seat. The less he clung to the myth that hard work equals success, the more his businesses thrived. The lesson is clear: we achieve the most not when we punish ourselves with work, but when we work smart, on something we are passionately driven to do. The second myth we must dismantle is the idea that failure means disaster. When Simon asks people on the street why they haven't started pursuing their dream, the most common answer is a variation of 4 quiet words: it might not work. We are conditioned to see failure as an embarrassment, proof that we are not good enough. But Simon challenges us to find a single successful entrepreneur who doesn't have dozens of stories of failure. He shares his own, a comic book venture called Devashard. Inspired by the idea of an Eastern superhero universe, he poured $1.5 million into creating a beautiful graphic novel. Twice, major movie production deals seemed imminent, with headlines promising an $80 million movie on the scale of Lord of the Rings. And twice, the deals fell apart, leaving the business with no future. He had to eat the loss and shut it down. It was a huge setback, but he has never regretted it. The experience taught him invaluable lessons about business, about not spending money you don't have based on vague promises. Years later, he realized one of the producers who had been interested was Harvey Weinstein. That no he was forced to accept turned out to be a lucky escape. Failure had been the right outcome. He urges us to embrace failure as data, as the price of risk, and as the tuition fee for the school of entrepreneurship. You learn from every single experience, and you get better because you failed. Myth number 3 is the seductive whisper that it's okay to avoid hard things. Our modern world is engineered for convenience. We can have anything delivered to our doorstep with the tap of a button. But this ease, Simon warns, can blunt our senses and dull our appetite for the very challenges that shape us. We learn through experience and grow through adversity. Without those knocks, we don't develop the confidence born of resilience. He tells the story of a woman he met whose dream was to be rich. He told her she needed to learn sales, the #1 skill in life. She insisted she couldn't do it. So, he took a pen out of his pocket and offered her £100 if she could sell it to a stranger on the street in the next 60 seconds. Hesitantly she tried, and with 33 seconds to spare, the deal was done. She later messaged him saying those 27 seconds had changed her life. She had tackled a hard thing and realized it wasn't so hard after all. The hard things are often so much more difficult in our minds than in reality. We must run towards them, not away. Finally, we come to the most glittering and hollow of them all. Myth number 4: possessions make you happy. For a long time, Simon believed this. When he was homeless, his dream wasn't to change the world. It was to own a Porsche, a shiny, expensive symbol that had made it. And after he sold his company, he bought one. Driving it out of the showroom was a moment of pure euphoria. That feeling lasted for about a week. By week 2, he was anxious about it getting scratched. By week 3, he was bored of talking about it. He realized the car owned him. Selling it, he says, felt almost as good as buying it. He learned an important lesson: a possession should never be your dream. It can't. He argues the same for homeownership, which he controversially views not as an investment, but as a trap that limits your options and your freedom. The real choice isn't mortgage versus rent, but mortgage versus freedom. By weeding out these 4 myths that hard work is the only answer, that failure is final, that hard things should be avoided, and that possessions equal happiness, we prepare the soil. We create a clean surface to which a real dream can finally stick. So, once we've cleared away the myths, why is the concept of a dream so important? Why not a goal or an ambition? Simon insists on the word dream because it is one of the most powerful in our language. It's provocative. It has an element of the taboo. It unlocks a part of us that goals and plans cannot. He points to the American dream, not the American goal. He reminds us that Martin Luther King Jr. declared, "I have a dream, not I have a plan." A dream connects to a deeper, more emotional part of ourselves. It's an image of the best version of our lives, something that can change how others see us and how we see ourselves. But for a dream to have real power, it needs fuel. And that fuel, Simon argues, is purpose. A dream is the destination, but purpose is the engine that gets you there. He learned this the hard way with his company, Fluid. In the early years, they were signing big clients like CNN and Estee Lauder, but they had a huge problem: people kept leaving. He was in denial, blaming the employees. Finally, he started talking to those who left, and the feedback was consistent: the business had no purpose. They were just helping other rich companies make more money. It wasn't fulfilling. This forced Simon and Helen to soul search. They went back to why they started Fluid in the first place, to protect talented creatives like Helen from being taken advantage of. They decided their purpose would not be to serve brands, but to celebrate and protect creativity. They would ensure their people were paid what they were worth and given the time they needed to do their best work. After that, their staff turnover problem vanished. Purpose became the secret ingredient, the rope that everyone could hold on to as they climbed the mountain together. It's what he calls the pain anchor, something that reminds you why you're doing this. For him, it's the memory of being 15, homeless, and desperately needing help he couldn't get. That pain is the foundation of his work today. To help you find this anchor, Simon proposes that the path to the future begins by looking back and asking yourself 3 fundamental questions. The first question is, what are my likes and dislikes? It sounds simple, but many of us spend our lives doing things we don't enjoy, relegating our passions to hobbies. Simon urges you to be brutally honest. What do you really love to do? What gives you energy and what drains it? For him, he liked meeting people, talking, and helping entrepreneurs. He disliked meetings and poring over numbers. This self-knowledge led him to start a podcast, which eventually evolved into his TikTok videos and the creation of Help Inc. Your passions are the compass. Follow them, and they will lead you toward your dream. The second question is deeper and more difficult. What is my pain? Simon believes that the most powerful purposes grow from our most difficult experiences. Pain is what turns wants into needs. Think of Kelly, the dog groomer. She was abandoned as a teenager and became homeless. Her dream to start her own dog grooming business wasn't just about loving animals. It was rooted in her pain. She wanted to care for creatures who couldn't speak up for themselves, in the way she wished someone had cared for her. Or think of Sophie, who created tummy-friendly jeans after life-saving surgery made it impossible for her to wear normal clothes. Her company, I Am Denim, was born from her need to solve a problem that grew directly from her pain. We must harness our pain, understand how it shaped us, and use it as a source of motivation. The third and final question ties it all together. How can I help? A dream discovered through introspection finds its power when it becomes about service to others. Think of Delon, the young man at McDonald's, who was afraid to admit his dream was to be a Twitch streamer. His dream wasn't just to play games, it was to make other people smile. Bradley, the former Army helicopter engineer turned massage therapist, found his purpose in taking people's pain away. Helping people is fundamental to who we are, and it's also fundamental to business. When you ask how you can help, you are stepping into the shoes of your future customer. Your likes give you direction. Your pain gives you compulsion. But how you choose to help is the answer that ties the knot, turning your personal mission into something the world needs. Answering these 3 questions, what you like, what your pain is, and how you can help, doesn't just give you an idea. It gives you a dream with a purpose, an anchor, and a direction. It gives you something real to build your life around. Even with a dream and a purpose, most of us get stuck. We have the idea, but we're paralyzed by a combination of doubts, limiting beliefs, and social conditioning. Simon Squibb visualizes this as a staircase of excuses, with 7 steps that kill our dreams before they even have a chance to breathe. To pursue our dream, we first have to identify which step we're standing on and learn how to climb past it. Step 1, the very bottom of the staircase, is I don't have time. This is the mantra of survival mode. You're so buried in obligations, bills to pay, a job to keep, that the very idea of a dream feels frivolous, almost insulting. Simon knows this mode well from his time being homeless. The problem, he says, isn't being in survival mode, it's accepting it as your permanent reality. The moment you give yourself permission to think about your dream, your mindset changes. You start moving forward, even if it's just a tiny tiptoe. Direction at the start matters more than distance. Step 2 is trap. This is for those who are held back by unresolved problems, debt, past failures, toxic relationships. We try to sweep these things under the carpet, but they will eventually kill our dreams. Simon tells the story of Divide, a young chef with a brilliant dream for a restaurant called the Black Pearl. Simon helped him raise money and gain support, but Divide eventually disappeared. It turned out he had heavy debts he was ashamed of and had returned home to Italy to deal with them. The dream was put on hold because he refused to confront his problems. To climb this step, you must be brutally honest with yourself and clean the slate. Step 3 is the deceptive comfort of I don't need it. These are the people who say they're happy. They have the job, the mortgaged house, the financed car. But in reality, they've created a prison of their own financial obligations. They aren't working to achieve a dream. They're working to pay back money they owe. They say they're doing it for their kids, but Simon offers a blunt truth: kids don't do what you say. They do what you do. If you model a life of quiet desperation in a job you hate, you are setting the template for their future. To escape this trap, you must renounce your belief in possessions as the end goal. Live within your means, and you will gain the freedom to have a dream. Step 4 is the common refrain: I don't know what. People who say this are open to the idea of a dream, but haven't engaged with it. But Simon believes they almost always do know, just below the surface. He tells of a successful entrepreneur who never thought of starting a business until he was laid off after 20 years of loyal service. That painful event gave him his dream to start his own company and do it better. If you're on this step, ban the phrase "I don't know." Start listing your likes and dislikes, your strengths and weaknesses. The answer is already there. You just have to stop lying to yourself. Step 5 is where we find people who know their dream, but are paralyzed by the thought, "I don't know how." This is where we become our own worst enemies, overthinking everything and creating artificial barriers. We assume it must be incredibly difficult. This is the step Sam, the aspiring caterer from Hong Kong, was stuck on. She had the name Chez Sam and the skills, but she was convinced she didn't know how to start. Simon gave her a nudge, an opportunity to cater his launch event just days later. She took the chance, and her business was born. The truth is, we underestimate ourselves and overestimate the world. Break the dream down into a series of achievable actions, and just start doing them. Step 6 is the fear of being worried what they'll think. This is about the dream killers in our own lives, the partners, parents, and friends who, often with good intentions, tell us our dream is unrealistic. They project their own fears and limitations onto us. Simon recalls his friend Charlie, a bus driver with an immense talent for drawing. His partner constantly undermined his ambition, telling him to get a proper job. He eventually succeeded, but it took years longer than it should have. Simon's advice is simple: only take advice from people if you want a life like theirs. If you don't want their life, don't take their advice. Finally, at the very top of the staircase is step 7. I've tried before. These are the people who have been burned by past failures and have told themselves they're never going through that again. This, Simon argues, is an irrational response that deprives us of failure's most important lessons. He has run 19 businesses, plenty have failed, but is grateful for each one. They made him a better entrepreneur. People on this step have bad fear. They need to forgive themselves for past failures, analyze what really went wrong, and turn that experience from a millstone into an asset. Once you know which step you're on, and how to climb beyond it, you are finally ready to turn your dream from an idea into a reality. Once you've defined your dream and climbed the staircase of excuses, the next phase is all about action. It's about taking that dangerous, thrilling, and necessary step from thinking to doing. Simon Squibb calls this next phase building a boat. It's not about burning your bridges entirely, but about making yourself seaworthy for the journey ahead. It involves 3 crucial steps to create the freedom necessary to pursue your dream. The first step is to free your finances. This starts with a radical shift in mindset, from being a time seller to a time buyer. Most people are time sellers. They work a job trading their hours for a wage. The problem is, you eventually run out of time to sell. You give and give until there's nothing left. Time buyers, on the other hand, build systems and teams that allow them to profit more without stretching themselves thinner. They sell outcomes, not hours. The ultimate goal is to become your own boss. If you can't quit your job tomorrow, Simon suggests starting a side hustle or even asking your current boss for equity. The second part of freeing your finances is getting your costs down. Be ruthless. Frame every cost in terms of the hours you have to work to pay for it. That £500 a month car payment suddenly looks very different when you realize it represents 20 hours of your life every single month. Are you willing to trade that much of your life for a depreciating asset? Or would you rather invest it in your dream? The second step is to free your mind. This is about adopting the right mindset for the journey. It's about escaping what he calls the big company mindset that so many aspiring entrepreneurs fall into. They think they need a fancy office, a complex business plan, and a massive production run in China before they've even sold a single t-shirt. This is a recipe for disaster. The successful approach is almost always the opposite. He points to Ben Francis, founder of the billion-dollar brand Gymshark. He started at 19 while working as a Pizza Hut delivery driver. He bought a sewing machine and started making clothes in his parents' garage. He started small, he started poor, and he built from there. This mindset is about breaking the dream down into small, tangible, achievable steps. Instead of being overwhelmed by the mountain, focus on the very next step in front of you. This builds momentum and turns a daunting vision into a series of manageable tasks. The third and final step is to free your idea. A dream that lives only in your head is a fragile thing. You must say it out loud. You must state your intent to your friends, your family, and the people you work with. Yes, you will encounter criticism, but the support you will find will far outweigh it. Never underestimate the power of your network. Your sister's friend might be a designer, your cousin might know someone in distribution, your grandma might be able to teach you how to sew. Help is out there, but you have to give people the chance to help you. This is why Simon advises against writing a detailed business plan, which he sees as a form of procrastination. Instead of writing a plan, take action. Meet people, research the competition, trial your service. Launch the business in your head, not on paper. Once you've freed your finances, your mind, and your idea, you're ready to take the most critical step of all, finding your first customer. The moment someone pays you real money for your dream, everything changes. Your idea becomes real. You are no longer an aspiring entrepreneur, you are an entrepreneur. Simon recalls the first time he ever approached a stranger, a woman stacking shelves in a Tesco, and asked her about her dream. She wanted to open a care home. He was so moved by her story that he gave her the £150 he had in his pocket as a deposit to be her first customer. Her response was a single word, really. It's the same word he hears over and over. That disbelief that someone is taking their dream seriously. Finding that first customer is the validation you need. Getting the second proves it wasn't a fluke. But it's the third customer, he argues, that makes your business real. 3 is a crowd. It gives you enough data to know your idea has legs. It gives you feedback to hone your product. It gives you the momentum to keep going. Building your boat is about creating this initial momentum. It's about getting ready to quit your job, finding your first few customers, and then going all in. Because you can't run a business with the left hand and grow it with the right. Businesses are like babies. They require your constant attention. You have to commit until there is no turning back. When you have that feeling of excitement mixed with a little bit of fear, you know you've prepared well enough to be confident, but you're taking a leap big enough to be a bit scared. That's the sweet spot. That's when you know your boat is ready to set sail. The final part of this journey is about navigating the open waters of entrepreneurship. You've built your boat, and now it's time to sail it, to grow it from a small vessel into a mighty ship. This is the section Simon titles, Follow That Dream, and it's where he shares the hard-won wisdom of how to build a business that will not only survive but thrive. He begins by demolishing the idea that you need a lot of money to start. In fact, he argues you must start poor. Having too much money in the beginning is a curse. It makes you lose discipline. You spend on things you want, not things you need. Starting with nothing, as he did, sharpens your mind. It forces you to be creative, resourceful, and disciplined. Bootstrapping your business is the foundation for long-term success. But how do you grow? The key, Simon emphasizes, is not chasing more customers, but delighting the ones you already have. He learned this at Fluid. His wife Helen already had a base of loyal clients. Instead of chasing new ones, Simon focused on serving these existing clients so well that they became his most powerful marketing tool. He made one client, Fortune magazine, so happy that they referred him to countless others. Soon, he was no longer Simon Squibb from Fluid, but Simon Squibb, who works for clients like Fortune magazine. Your top 20% of customers will drive 80% of your future business. They will refer you, they will give you feedback, and they will build your brand for you. Cherish them. Another golden rule for growth is to ask for money up front. Always get a 50% deposit before beginning work. This isn't just about cash flow. It's a test of the client's commitment, and it gives you the flexibility to deliver without financial pressure. With that deposit, you can cover your costs, and the final payment is pure profit, which you can then reinvest back into the business. And you must reinvest. In the early days, you act poor. But once you're established, you must invest in your people, your systems, and your brand. Don't be the founder who's still using a 6-month-old news post on their website. Invest in success. A huge part of this investment is in people. Simon dedicates an entire chapter to finding brilliant people, which he says is the most important and most difficult task of any entrepreneur. He has a simple hiring philosophy. He looks for alignment on purpose, mission, and moral code. He shares a hypothetical question he asks in interviews: would you accept a perfect life of riches and reputation until your 70th birthday, at which point it will be revealed that you were a fraud who ruined people's lives? There is no right answer, but the way a person grapples with it reveals their character. He also believes in giving people ownership. He wants employees who will one day leave to start their own companies, and he gives them equity to make them true partners in the journey. But you also have to learn how to fire people. He uses a simple 1 to 10 scale. Firing the 6s and below is easy. The 9s and 10s are your stars. The danger zone is the 7s and 8s, the steady but uninspired performers. They drain the energy of your star players, and if left unchecked, will pull your company's culture down to mediocrity. Firing them is a difficult but necessary act of leadership. As your business grows, you'll need to develop your risk muscle. Good risk-taking isn't about blind gambles, it's about smart, calculated decisions. You get good at taking risks by taking risks. You learn from the ones that pay off, and you learn even more from the ones that don't. You must constantly test risks against your purpose. Will this move me closer to my dream, or is it a distraction? Through all this, you must learn to persist. But persistence isn't just about banging your head against the same wall. It's about smart persistence. It's about knowing when to pivot. He reminds us that YouTube started as a dating service, Netflix started by mailing DVDs, and Instagram started as a complicated location-based app called Burb. They all succeeded because they persisted through pivoting until they found the business model that customers actually wanted. Finally, every founder must know when to quit, not giving up in a moment of crisis, but quitting at the right time, when you've reached the end of the road with that particular business. Helen, his wife and business partner, was the first to realize Shed had enough of fluid. Her honesty forced Simon to see that he too was getting bored and needed a new outlet for his evolving dream. You have to recognize the signs of dwindling passion. This leads to the ultimate act of letting go, selling your business. His simple rule for selling is don't try to sell. A motivated seller never gets a good price. Instead, focus on building a great business and nurturing relationships. The right buyer will find you, often from an unexpected place. Fluid wasn't sold to the company he'd courted for years, but to PwC, a consulting firm that had become a client and decided it was easier to buy them than to keep hiring them. Selling your business isn't the end of your dream. It's the beginning of the next chapter. It gives you the resources and the freedom to pursue that dream in a bigger, better way. For Simon, it led to Helpbink and his mission to ignite 10 million dreams. His journey shows that a dream is not a single destination you arrive at. It's a compass that guides you through your entire life, constantly evolving, constantly calling you forward. It's the antidote to complacency and the engine of a life lived on your own terms. So, what can you do right now, today, to begin this journey? Before you overhaul your finances or quit your job, Simon offers one simple, powerful practice. He calls it to take 4. Starting today, take just 4 minutes out of your day to help someone, ideally a stranger. Take 1 minute to find out who they are. 1 minute to find out what they need. 1 minute to give them some help. And 1 minute to encourage them to pass it on. This isn't about grand gestures. It's about the small, human interactions our tech-optimized world is erasing. It's about breaking free from the transactional mindset of "I'll do this for you, if you do that for me," and embracing the simple, profound act of giving without the expectation of getting anything in return. This practice does more than just make the world a slightly better place. It changes you. It awakens your confidence that you can make a difference. It sharpens your awareness of the needs of others. It directly trains you for that third crucial question in finding your dream: how can I help? This summary, this collection of ideas and stories, is just the map. It's the first step on the staircase. But to truly experience the transformation, to feel the conviction in Simon Squibb's words, and to apply these principles to the unique contours of your own life, you must take the journey itself. Reading What's Your Dream is that journey. It is an investment in the most important project you will ever undertake, the construction of a life that is truly, authentically your own. The link to get your copy is in the description below. If this summary resonated with you, give it a like, and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into life-changing books. Now go, take 4 minutes, and then ask yourself the question that could change everything. What's your dream?